Hey everyone, this is update from May 24, 2022, day 90 of the war, end of the date update. So this is essentially 3 months of the war, just unfortunate anniversary. So we're gonna look first at the sort of general economic situation in the world actually today and in Russia, and we're gonna do a walk through the front line. In terms of, for those who are impatient and don't want to wait, just want to know what's going on there. The situation is very, very difficult for Ukrainian side, obviously. It's on the edge, but Ukrainian defenses have not collapsed. So there are no huge changes on the front line. So this is summary for those who, but we do recommend staying because it's very tense and it's truly a moment where everything really depends on the will, because both sides threw everything they could into the fight. But first, let's actually look at situation in the world, how this war affects the rest of the world and also Russia. So we'll start with the first place. It's Hungary, this relatively small country that's bordering Ukraine, that has very strong ties with Russia. So it's declared state of emergency due to the war in Ukraine. And basically what's going on there is that inflation is getting out of control. There are shortages of food, and potentially the whole financial system is kind of getting out of control, basically. So this, so that's the first place. Then let's look at the Germany. Germany declared that it probably will restart its coal-powered stations, power stations that generate energy, electricity in the country, because there are chances that there will be shortages of the Russian natural gas from Russia, and there is no easy way to find replacement for that. So that's really a huge 180-degree turn for Germany, which was trying to phase out all of their coal-powered electricity generation and nuclear-powered. So that's what's going on in the world, or at least that's what sort of in Europe. Now let's look at what's going on in Russia, and situation is getting there worse economically for sure. So for example, just a very anecdotal example is that logistics and sort of tracking rates, basically, you know, as you imagine, most of the goods are transported by trucks, at least the sort of consumer goods. And that's, you know, majority sort of like a backbone of the economy. That's like a logistical arteries of the economy. So the situation is getting worse to the point, for example, this is the route from St. Petersburg to the south, like Krasnodar Krai. This is here. Actually, sorry, this is Stavropol Krai. But basically, the route is to go to either. And so the rate for this route dropped from 100,000 rubles before the war, and rubles is Russian currency, to 50,000. And there is simply not enough jobs for the truckers. And so as you can imagine, that's really what this implies, is that the economy is quickly slowing down. And when we said that, you know, people who were economists who were projecting that Russian GDP will just drop by 10% or 9%, is totally unrealistic. In our estimate, it will be at least 30-40%, because logistics is the first sign where everything goes, because, you know, you obviously need to first transport goods before you sell them. And if there is no demand, you stop transporting them. That's the first thing that gets affected. So, but however, there is also a new trend there, where Russia is trying to start bringing goods from China, and the way it actually goes, not through this sort of seaborne transportation, but actually some of the trackers are seeing routes going all the way to Russian Far East, Vladivostok, in this area. So that will be like kind of, you know, probably the longest in the world tracking route, going from this Far East to basically, you know, this western part of Russia. You know, economically, it's probably going to be super expensive as well, but this is what's what is Russia trying to do in terms of trying to support the economy the way it can. Then there is another interesting data point. So we're going back to the city called Yekaterinburg. If you've been watching us, you remember we were talking about Russian military complex that's based sort of close to around this city. And this is the third largest city in Russia. It's about 1.2 million people. So the apartment sales fell there 7 times in April relative to March. So let's say in March, the apartment sales were 700. Just so people understand, because sometimes people not follow what means 7 times. So in March there were 700 apartments sold, and in April only 100, right? So this is just made up number just to get the feeling of the magnitude of the drop. This is largest drop on record, never happened before, and so things are clearly getting extremely difficult in Russia. Then there's another data point from Altai Krai. It's nothing major in Russia. It's just a small, tiny, territory. Maybe it's not small, but economically there's not much there. But for example, the bankruptcies, physical bank, bankruptcy of people, regular people, it went up from tens till hundreds, right? So it's a huge jump as well, also never recorded in the past history. So things are definitely getting very difficult inside of Russia economy-wise, and for example, even for the sales of oil, just to understand. So let's say if Brent costs on international markets about 110 plus, Russia has to sell the Urals oil for about 60. So huge discount, 60, 65. So that's a huge discount relative to Brent. And in the past, there was discount of about $5 or something like that, plus minus. So it was very close, or very close to WTI. But in any case, so the opportunity to earn money also, it's still there, but it's also difficult. It's getting exceedingly difficult. In addition, what happened is that U.S. Treasury canceled Russia's sort of state or central bank license that allowed it to pay its dollar-denominated debts. So that's really what this means. That there is an upcoming payment on May 27. And so this really means that Russia probably will not be able to make that payment, and that really means that it will be pushed into sort of technical default, because obviously it has money, but it's basically the means to pay on its debts are basically kind of cut off, and so there could be technical default on May 27 unless there is some miracle happens there. So this is kind of quick view on what's going on inside of Russia economy-wise, and a little bit in Europe. So just we're going to discuss a little bit places outside of Ukraine as well. Now let's actually go back to Ukraine. Let's before we do a frontline walkthrough, we have there were questions about Switchblade, kamikaze drones. And so today there was the first time when they were used, and it's actually unclear to us what was used, 300 or 600. But in any case, it was used on T-72. It damaged it, but it didn't actually destroy the tank. So the question is only, was it incorrectly used 300 or it was 600? We don't know. In case it was 600, so then obviously the initial kind of assessment not very favorable. And then, by the way, on this kind of building on this, Russian army also used their kamikaze drone about 3 or 4 days ago against M777 howitzers that Ukraine got from the US. and it was also not successful. It was very clear that it kind of missed and kind of hit close, and probably, you know, sort of wounded some soldiers or something, but it definitely did not destroy the equipment. So far, if the case with 600 is confirmed, they don't look really promising from the initial experience. This is obviously just initial experience, but that's kind of like assessment. So let's now actually go through the front line. So as always, artillery ping pong here along this line, different locations, just but more or less pretty much non-stop ping pong as here as well. And that's kind of our usual situation here. Now let's look what's going on around Kharkiv, and as we always, we're gonna do in clockwise fashion, and we're gonna go first south, and then we're gonna go west. So let's look at Kharkiv first. So it looks like Russian troops managed to finally capture Ternova, so it's in Russian hands. There is fighting going on here, but we don't have enough details to actually clearly map it out. But there is some fighting. It's a very low intensity fighting. It's at the squad company level. It's not like anything, not major attacks or anything like that. This is just kind of Russian side wants to have a buffer to prevent artillery ping pong or ability of Ukrainian side to hit targets on the Russian side, even though there are rockets, so that it's still probably unpreventable. But nevertheless, they kind of probably feel comfortable by having a buffer. So let's go actually south. Let's look first at the Izyum bridgehead and Lyman bridgehead. And this is schematic here at high level. This is a Russian units. There's a Ukrainian units. The gray ones are exhausted, or what we deem units that suffered heavy losses, and as a whole unit is not capable of offensive operations. But what happens is then Russian command tries to create usually call it condensed or consolidated units, or it's also, there is a term ad hoc, but we don't think ad hoc is really exactly truly explaining the meaning of it. So we call it consolidated, probably also not terribly correct. But the point is that you just try to collect whoever can still fight from the whole entire larger unit, and you kind of throw them as a sort of, complete mix of different people who could be, let's say if it's a division, you probably wouldn't even know, right? Because it's up to 10,000 people, you wouldn't even know those people. So you just totally kind of like creating just a group of people. So the coherence is extremely bad there, basically. The point is. Okay, so now let's actually look at, so the situation around on Izyum bridgehead is stable, no advances. Let's actually, but there were developments in Lyman. So on Lyman bridgehead, let's actually have a closer look. So so this northern part, which is around Svyatohirsk, stays the same. No changes there. Yesterday there was a very strong pressure by Russian forces. They managed, as we discussed, to capture kind of like eastern and northeastern part of the town, and basically Ukrainian troops stopped them along the railroad, and so far the front line holds. So Russian troops did not manage. So let's actually look at the situation. We didn't change the map, but because it's essentially the same. So sort of main Ukrainian defensive position goes along the railroad. Like there is like a station here, basically like a central kind of like part of the town in this area. So this is kind of still being held by Ukrainian troops. Russian side is obviously attacking, but they did not have progress there. So we can call it situation is stable and very difficult for Ukrainian side. Let's put it this way. Let's now look, let's continue and let's look at Severodonetsk salient. Situation there is very, very difficult for Ukrainian side, and we would say really on the edge. So as you can see, this is in the north. There were several attempts by Russian troops to establish bridgehead. There are reports. This is not confirmed. This is just, we just want to share it because there are reports that Russian troops are preparing or like creating a group to create bridgehead again here near Bilogorivka. And that we understand is that, you know, why they do it is because they sense that this group is about to break out from this situation. So they really need, you know, they obviously will need some help from the north, right? So that will be northern pincer, this will be southern pincer, right? So the logic is very simple. So basically what this really tells us is that the main objective, main goal for this Russian group here is not to try, not kind of like a small pocket here, but they still very hopeful to create larger pocket here, just basically all of this group, or force withdrawal of all of this group. And if that withdrawal happens, it's pretty much guaranteed that Ukrainian troops during the withdrawal will lose all heavy equipment. So they'll be just basically, they will just save their the lives of the soldiers, but all of their heavy equipment is gone. And that would be very, very painful for Ukrainian army because, as we discussed many, many times, Ukrainian army is severely lacking on weapons. So that would be a big hit there. So that's the situation. That's partially why Ukrainian army is trying to hold the line at like basically all will in the stretch, probably to total maximum, as much as, you know, as you can. And it's really at this point is like just based on the will, because really essentially everything that could be thrown, well, giving the whole sort of limitations of Ukrainian army, we discussed many times, like, you know, a lot of inefficiencies, extremely poor middle and high level command, and all of that stuff, giving all of these limitations. So that's been everything that could be done in this imperfect system is done basically, right? So it really depends on, at this point, on very much on individual soldiers and lower level like commanders, like a company squad commanders. So that's who really will determine the fate of this situation at this point. So far, Russian side. So we just so we discussed this northern side. They preparing to create another bridgehead here in hope that this group will break out in a day or two, probably. That's the logic there. Then Russian troops putting pressure here on the defenders in Severodonetsk itself, to kind of make sure that they will not be able to safely and easily withdraw. Just for because the map is relatively small, what this means that this unit from 4th National Guards Brigade is actually here in town. It's a battalion or 2 battalions here, and also battalions from the 57th Brigade are here as well. So there is not just battalions from 115th Ukrainian Militia Brigade. There's many more troops there, probably up to 2,000, like more likely like 1,500. So so just so everybody understands, there is you know, good amount of troops there, and the Russian side is putting pressure using 2nd Army Corps here, because that's call it 2nd or 3rd rated troops, and they basically just putting pressure to distract sort of attention of Ukrainian command and make sure that they cannot pull any reserves. Not that there is not much to pull out of here, but they just want to make sure that they completely busy here, and basically trying to stress Ukrainian sort of army as a system, if you look, as much as possible, to put stress at every angle, every opportunity, wherever they can, right? So that's what's going on here. Then this Toshkivka is still holding on. So basically the fighting is going on somewhere in this village. No changes here. We actually determined that this is being attacked by the 4th Brigade from the 2nd Army Corps. So this is here. So apparently 7th is here. And there's probably another that we never been able to determine the number of brigade it's operating here. So probably 2 brigades here, 1 brigade here, and then mostly Russian troops overall here. So then again, there were attacks on Hirske, on Zolote. Russian troops got stuck here in the defense line, and they never managed to kind of get through it. So basically they stuck, and this probably means that they totally stuck there. But not that they really want to totally breaks through. This is, again, the idea is to put pressure everywhere where they could, right? To increase chances of success here, because that's a main bet that the Russian command is making at this point. So situation here is extremely on the edge from Ukrainian side, obviously. The Russian side attacked towards the village of Bilogorivka. From what we know, it was not successful attack. We don't have, this is like sort of 95% confirmed information, but not 100%. So far from what we know, this is still in Ukrainian hands, because this is essentially kind of like the sort of final sort of line before the Russian side could break. Oh, here as well, but they decided to, for whatever reason, they decided that this is easier to penetrate here. They kind of like not as actively attacking in here, and definitely the attacks here in Kamyshylaha totally subsided. So the kind of like the axis of attack kind of shifted in this direction, basically, from initially, because initially it was kind of here, here, and here, and now they trying. So basically, they probably feeling that defenses here are weaker for whatever reason, and we obviously, you know, we don't have a 3D map here to be able to kind of truly feel how it is there. But for whatever reason, they feel it's easier to break through here, so now they're attacking in this direction. And this one as well is kind of like more or less stable. I mean, there are attacks, like local level attacks, but there's no like concentrated, like, you know, strong effort as it is here in this area, basically. So that's the situation here. Here again, nothing really to report, just more or less stable. Let's actually look at their this is that map that hasn't really changed. This is where the attacks here are pretty much not that strong here as well. The focus is basically attacking this Bilogorivka. At the same time, when we look at this map, what it really tells us that really, in order to get it, you really need to kind of capture Vasilievka. But somehow they are attacking it from this direction, from kind of like straight from south. So because you see there is like kind of like a little swamp here, so that creates kind of natural blockage on the Russian on the axis of the Russian attack. So all we know that there was extremely strong attack on this village, and so far Ukrainian defenses held here. That's all we can report right now. So this is again the same story, and we actually don't even know how the attack happened. Was it just from this group kind of like that, or actually it kind of came from this group? So it's actually not terribly clear how, even like the sort of like actual direction of the attack, how it all came about. So as now let's kind of look, let's go a little bit more south, where Russian side had managed to dislodge very good, very well entrenched Ukrainian positions here. It was called Svitlodarsk salient, after the name of this town here, Svitlodarsk. And so, as you remember, there was very clever attack when they attacked it from flank and kind of almost rear, and really forced withdrawal of Ukrainian troops. So there is no even fight in this Svitlodarsk, just totally abandoned by Ukrainian troops, because under the threat of encirclement, you just leave. And so we thought, we don't know, this is approximation of Ukrainian defensive line. We don't know exact sort of at this point. Situation basically here is very fluid, so we don't know exact the Ukrainian defensive line here. All we know that Russian side is controlling this village was Rubizhne. They captured everything on this side, and it's unclear they managed to get on the other side. All we know that this bridge was blown up, so the chances that the Russian side kind of crossed on this side are extremely low, but it's possible. We don't have firm confirmation on this. And then just for those who followed yesterday, and when we discussed Ukrainian power generation system, this is that huge one huge coal-powered station here. So this is this one. This is right here. So it's still being controlled by Ukrainian army, but it's super close to the front line. So then we're just gonna go down more south towards Donetsk, west of Donetsk, because here, well, where is it? Here it's again kind of quiet, so there's not much to discuss there. So let's look here what's going on. There was no typical kind of like strong infantry attacks around Marinka, just artillery shelling, actually, surprisingly. So again, Avdiivka, Marinka, Novomikhailivka, they were typical places. Mostly was artillery shelling. Russian side actually officially sort of announced, like publicly, that they're not going to continue attacking here straight front of Avdiivka, because obviously it leads to heavy casualties. So their goal is actually, this kind of now starts to make sense what they try to do. They would like to sort of kind of encircle, and that's why they started building the salient, which we think is way too sort of probably unrealistic, let's put this way. But the goal of the salient is basically kind of like sort of create a threat or encircle and effectively force withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from Avdiivka. So basically, Russian side is learning that, frontal attacks are, extremely high casualty, extremely difficult, low probability of success. So they're now they've seen what happened in Svitlodarsk, and that commander was a good example of how it's done. And now it's basically, the idea is probably somewhat, spreading towards the rest of the Russian, more regular Russian troops. But it doesn't look very promising, to be fair here, that there is not. We don't think that they will be able to achieve much here in terms of creating credible threat to Avdiivka at this point. Okay, let's keep going south. Actually, we're gonna start going west, because this is Vuhledar here, and you'll see it on. This is actually just close up a little bit. Just we're keeping it if the Russian side continues attacking here, so we can show in more detail, because the attacks are super, I would say, super slow. They don't achieve much, so it's basically like 1 or 2 kilometers if they achieve anything. So really need to zoom in to be able to really see what's happening there. So now we're gonna look at Zaporizhia front line, so which starts around Vuhledar, and we're gonna focus on the eastern section. Here, everything is really not much to report. Everything is, call it quiet in terms of there's artillery shelling. There's some kind of like reconnaissance attacks, but really nothing major is happening here. So just basically the same status quo. Both sides, not that they're happy, but they don't have resources to change this. So this is basically all about resource constraint, right? So both sides don't have resources. Everything is being, what can be pulled is pulled to Severodonetsk salient, and so that's where the sort of fate of this phase of this war is being decided at this moment. So let's look at the Kherson bridgehead. So as always, the same thing as we discussed. Russian troops are digging in, preparing to defend this whole situation. Russia is announcing that it's going to annex the whole Kherson region, and it's going to be part of Russia. So and also the same goes true for the Zaporizhia region. So they, actively trying to sort of integrate these regions into Russia. We discussed this many times, economically, politically, culturally, that's more important, and educationally. So they approach it from all angles. So it's not just it's not a primitive way where just like, oh, they work from even more focused on actually educational cultural approach, because as we discussed before, this is largely ethnically Ukrainian region overall. So there is a lot of sort of natural resistance towards Russian occupation here. Okay, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.